Before we descend into the labyrinth of the past, a brief mandate. The narrative you are about to experience is a work of historical reimagining. It is woven from the authentic strategic threads of the Civil War era, designed to illuminate the quiet fortitude of souls, long eclipsed by the shadows of history. The 1859 plantation portrait radiates a deceptive serenity until one deciphers what is clenched in a hand that was never meant to be noticed. Dr. Sarah Mitchell stands within the climate-controlled sanctum of the Virginia Historical Society, her gaze anchored to a high-fidelity 3D rendering that arrived in an anonymous vessel just days prior. The imagery captures the Ashford dynasty of Richmond, posed with architectural precision upon the thresholds of their estate. The patriarch sits as the axis of power his kin arranged, like fragile porcelain artifacts. Yet lurking in the periphery of the composition, nearly swallowed by the aesthetic of the era, are 5 attendants in formal livery. As the amber light of dusk filters through the archives, Sarah adjusts her lens, interrogating the stillness of the frame. At a superficial glance, it is a quintessential relic of antebellum hierarchy, a calculated display of opulence and social stature. But a tectonic shift occurs in Sarah's perception when she focuses on one woman in the background. Her posture defies the rigid choreography of the scene, her silhouette tilted at an evocative, intentional angle. Sarah leans in the air in the room, turning heavy with anticipation. Cradled in the woman's right hand, partially veiled by the heavy obsidian folds of her garment, lies an impossibility. A tightly compressed fragment of paper gripped with a tension that vibrates across a century. Sarah's pulse quickens. In 1,000 archival glimpses of this era, she has never witnessed a soul in bondage reclaiming their agency within a formal portrait. Everything in this era was curated staged to project a specific ideology of the Old South. She engages her digital sensors, capturing ultra-high-resolution data of the hand. The paper is undeniable, a deliberate intervention in history, not a mere optical illusion of shadow or chemistry. This recalibrates the entire narrative. Sarah whispers into the void. The following dawn, her investigation delves into the Ashford Chronicles. Records depict a world of tobacco empires and high society prestige, yet the ledger of the photographer Marcus Webb confirms the frozen moment, August 14, 1859. In all of Webb's expansive portfolio, the attendants are mere furniture symbols of wealth rather than architects of destiny. But through advanced spectral enhancement, the object in the woman's hand gains clarity. It is a vessel of thought folded multiple times to escape detection, yet expansive enough to carry the weight of a revolution. This was no longer just a photograph. It was a clandestine beacon of the human spirit. Sarah reaches out to Dr. Marcus Reynolds, a chronicler of silent revolutions. Within the hour, he stands before the image, his weathered features ignited by instant recognition. "This is strategic defiance," Marcus observes. "She is holding the cipher at the precise axis to be captured by the photonic sensors of the camera, yet remaining invisible to the contemporary eye. She wasn't just posing, she was broadcasting." In the sterile ledgers of 1860, they find only shadows' ages and descriptions stripped of identity. Yet the woman in the portrait radiates a commanding intelligence. She is a stoic sentinel, her gaze piercing through the temporal veil. She is the anchor of a hidden history. Driving through the oppressive August heat of Richmond, Sarah retraces a path carved 166 years ago. The riverside manor has been swallowed by the iron and concrete of modern progress, but its secrets lurk in the dusty annals of the Confederacy Museum. Among the cold discourse of commerce and legal restraints, Sarah unearths a disruption. A letter from September 1859 reveals Jonathan Ashford's escalating paranoia. He writes of disturbing anomalies among the household staff, a subtle shift in the atmosphere that he sought to crush before it ignited. By October, the purge began. 3 women were sold hastily exiled to New Orleans in a desperate attempt to silence an invisible revolution. The photograph had captured the calm before the ascension. In a Victorian townhouse adorned with the ghosts of the past 83-year-old Elizabeth Ashford Monroe confronts the truth. My ancestors sought to incinerate these memories. She confides, her voice trembling with the weight of decades. She speaks of family whispers of a great fear that once gripped Jonathan Ashford. Something was brewing beneath the surface of the plantation, a conspiracy of light that the shadows could no longer contain. What do you believe was inscribed upon that fragile veil of paper? Was it a map to deliverance or the blueprint of a silent uprising? Share your theories in the comments below. Do not forget to like and subscribe to join us as we continue to unreel the forgotten tapestry of human resilience. Within Elizabeth's sanctuary of memories, a name finally emerges: Clara. She was a woman who didn't just serve with her hands, but fortified her mind with stolen literacy, the most lethal weapon of her time. Elizabeth retrieves a weathered leather journal belonging to her great-grandmother, Margaret. An entry from August 1859 whispers from the yellowed pages. Clara stood with a peculiar stiffness, an unnatural tension in her frame. By September, the shadows tightened. In a state of pure visceral fear, Jonathan Ashford exiled Clara and 2 others to the Deep South. He branded them as corrupted by the fever of abolition, a contagion that threatened the very foundations of his world. He thought he was erasing a problem. In reality, he was trying to bury a revolution. Sarah consults with Dr. James Washington in Cincinnati. His voice crackles with professional urgency over the line, "Sarah, you aren't just holding a relic, you are holding a detonator." In 1859, Virginia was a powder keg. The historic raid on Harper's Ferry was a mere 60 days away. The clandestine veins of the Underground Railroad were pulsing beneath the soil of Richmond. Clara wasn't merely a silent observer, she was an operative. She was the intelligence within the fortress. The fragment of paper in Clara's hand was a strategic anomaly embedded in the very heart of her oppressor's vanity. Was it a map, a coded missive, or a signal to move? By embedding her truth within a formal portrait, an artifact the elites believed would immortalize their reign, Clara turned their own legacy into a vessel for defiance. It was a masterstroke of psychological warfare, hiding the flame of liberty in the glare of the enemy's spotlight. Leaving Richmond behind, Sarah plunges into the humid depths of New Orleans, once the dark artery of history's most brutal human commerce. At the Amistad Research Center, Dr. Patricia Green unearths digital archives where the past resurfaces through chillingly clinical ledgers. In October 1859, amidst a whirlwind of planter paranoia following John Brown's raid, Clara and her comrades were cast into the southern furnace. A notary's record reveals a detail that pierces Sarah's heart. A 34-year-old woman bearing unusual burn scars upon her hands. This was no accident. It was the brand of the era's ultimate transgression, the clandestine acquisition of literacy. But Clara remained unbroken. 6 months later, A lightning bolt struck the parish records. The dangerous and literate woman had vanished from the St. James sugar estate. She didn't just run, she emancipated herself from a destiny forged in chains. The trail leads Sarah to Philadelphia, where Quaker archives guard the secrets of the Underground Railroad, the silent network of salvation. Thomas Miller unfurls encoded journals from the spring of 1860. In the currents of history, Clara's identity was cloaked in the alias Traveler. Rebecca Walsh, a courageous conductor, recorded the arrival of a woman from the Gulf region possessed of an iron will and a formidable intellect. This woman wasn't merely seeking refuge, she carried unfinished business, a mission still smoldering from the embers of Richmond. Sarah assembles the final fragments from Philadelphia. The Quaker archives confirm a breathtaking hypothesis: that woman did not merely flee for her own sanctuary. Clara chose to descend back into the lion's den of Virginia in late 1860. Armed with intimate intelligence on Richmond's elite, she became a formidable ghost conductor, an invisible force on the tracks of liberty. A cryptic ledger entry from December 1860 seals her legacy. C reports 4 successful transits from the Ashford connections. Message delivered. At the Digital Humanities Lab, Sarah and Marcus stand paralyzed as Lisa, the imaging specialist, positions the original plate beneath a multispectral camera. This cutting-edge technology is designed to awaken ink particles that have slumbered for over a century. As the spectral filters sweep across the silver surface, the veil of time dissolves. On the ultra-high-definition monitor, Clara's hand is no longer clutching an anonymous scrap. Minute indentations, the delicate etched calligraphy of human will, begin to materialize beneath the silver sheen. Lisa pushes the contrast to its digital limit. The characters sharpen into focus. It was not a primitive map, but a sophisticated coded directory names of safe harbors and pivotal contacts. Clara had gambled her very existence to embed this intelligence into the heart of her oppressor's family portrait, transforming a symbol of bondage into a vessel for liberation. Under the scrutiny of advanced imaging, spectral shapes begin to coalesce on the monitor. These are not mere letters, but a private lexicon of liberation. Marcus compares them to his life's work, his voice thick with realization. "There it is," he whispers. The star-shaped sigils, ancient beacons for souls navigating toward the North Star, emerge as an undeniable testament. Clara was not merely clutching a scrap of paper, she was anchoring an operational blueprint. In the absolute center of a pre-war family monument, she had embedded the entire network of salvation. It was a masterstroke of subversive brilliance. The oppressor cherished the portrait as a legacy, oblivious that he was preserving the very instrument of his system's collapse. As Lisa magnifies the encrypted initials, JWMCRL identities begin to step out from the archival fog. James Washington, the dignified black carpenter; Mary Connor, the Quaker seamstress of unyielding faith; Robert Lewis, the Irish immigrant with a radical heart. Before they were disjointed footnotes in dusty ledgers. Now Clara's document acts as the definitive connective tissue, proving they functioned as a synchronized vascular system of resistance. This is no longer historical speculation. It is concrete evidence of a sophisticated high-stakes conspiracy of courage. The most seismic revelation surfaces within the National Archives. A Confederate sheriff's report from March 1861, moments before the clock of history struck the hour of the Civil War, unveils the final trajectory of the Richmond ghost. In March 1861, as the storm clouds of the Civil War gathered over Virginia, Jonathan Ashford, now a high-ranking security official, was forced to draft the bitterest confession of his life. In a report stained with institutional frustration, he documented his failure to capture a subject named Clara. He branded her a direct threat to stability, a woman of uncommon intelligence who had turned his vast surveillance network into a hollow facade. Clara had returned not for vengeance, but to dismantle the foundations of injustice through sheer brilliance. She was a phantom of justice, haunting the very streets that once sought to silence her. The ultimate truth surfaced within the Union Army records of April 1865. As Richmond fell and the old order crumbled into ash, a woman of 40 stepped into the light. It was Clara. Throughout 5 years of grueling warfare, she had functioned not only as a conductor for the fugitive, but as a master intelligence operative. The data she provided regarding supply lines altered the trajectory of the conflict. Clara did not merely survive, she conquered the very soil where she was once held in bondage. Today, within the halls of the Virginia Historical Society, the 1859 portrait no longer serves as a monument to the Ashford dynasty. It bears a new title, Clara's Manifesto. Standing before the frame, Elizabeth Ashford Monroe, the descendant of the oppressor and the great-grandchildren of Clara, the blossoms of liberty gaze together at the same image. That small fragment of paper in the servant's hand has transformed into a radiant beacon, a permanent reminder that the human intellect is the only force that can never be truly imprisoned. Amidst the hallowed silence of the gallery stands Robert Jackson, an elder whose family lore was anchored by a phantom savior. His great-grandfather had escaped the clutches of Richmond in 1861, guided by a woman whose identity was swallowed by the mists of time. For over a century, she remained a nameless legend. Clara. Robert whispers, his gaze locked onto the portrait. After all these generations, we finally know the name of the soul who delivered my bloodline from the shadows. The brass plaque beneath the 1859 portrait now carries a profound revelation. This image captured far more than its subjects ever intended. Clara, the woman positioned at the edge of the frame, transformed a monument of vanity into a masterpiece of defiance. The folded paper was no accident. It was a strategic map of the Underground Railroad's Richmond nodes. By embedding the evidence of liberation within a formal relic of the elite, she ensured the survival of the movement's secrets right before the eyes of the oppressor. Sarah's Odyssey achieved more than the restoration of a name. It revitalized a clandestine network far more expansive than previously documented. Clara's narrative is no longer a whispered myth. It is a cornerstone of human resilience. The once cryptic symbols are now celebrated as beacons of an intellect that refused to be shackled. Her defiance remains a permanent testament that the hunger for freedom is the most sophisticated map of all. Elizabeth approaches Sarah in a silence heavy with meaning, her posture easing as if a generational weight has finally been lifted. "Thank you for awakening this truth," she whispers. "My family's chronicle may be stained with shadows, but knowing that Clara fought and triumphed within our own walls, that gives me the fortitude to face our history." Sarah casts one final glance at the portrait. For 166 years, Clara's eyes have remained anchored, resolute visionary, and alight with an unquenchable fire. She was not posing for the lens of 1859. She was staring directly into the soul of the future, a living testament that the human intellect can never be truly shackled. In that weathered hand, the fragment of paper once dismissed as invisible now radiates like a manifesto of the soul. It stands as definitive proof that those held in bondage were never passive victims. They were architects of their own deliverance, silent insurgents who utilized unparalleled creativity and raw courage to weave their own tapestry of liberation. The portrait, once a monument to the absolute power of an elite class, has been entirely reclaimed. It has evolved into a sanctuary for Clara's unyielding defiance, a secret preserved within the very heart of the oppressor's vanity, waiting for the precise moment when justice would finally reclaim its name. Clara's odyssey concludes, but the lesson of her fortitude remains. What do you see in Clara's gaze after 166 years? Is it defiance or a message for the generations to come? Share your reflections as we honor these unshakable spirits. If this narrative moved, you please hit like, share, and subscribe to help spread the profound values of our shared history.